The best way to work this, I think, is from the top, the thick part, down this way. So we're going to do several things at this stage. The first thing is to make sure we've got these scoops as we want them. So, you know, get the shape in there correct, and you might need, at this stage, you might need a bent tool to work with the grain like this. This point in between each scoop, let me just emphasize this point here, should, I think, point towards the center. So aim it at whatever the center of the cloud is, but don't make it too prominent, so it starts off definitely there and then it fades out further down. Okay, so the first thing is to get these scoops nice and deep, coming up to the next bit of the cloud, and then set this cloud in and make sure that junction there is nice and clean. So that will be in our finished junction, and we're starting to think about the undercutting. Now that's straight up. I would suggest that from the top we only need about 10 degrees, if that, just to give us a sharp edge. So just a little bit of undercutting. Then as we finished this scoop here and this edge here to there, we can also think about this edge. I'm cleaning off this paper now. So make sure the scoop is as you want it, do the junctions, and then also set in this edge here. And this is going to be undercut, so we can start that back here. So what will happen is we'll go as far as we can. In fact, why don't I take a bit off here like this, push that back a bit. And it might be that we have to work from the back when we get round, when we take it off. But push this back as well here. Where the little join is between each petal, shall we call it, you can just run a groove like that, straight down. And this doesn't have to be flat, it can be slightly curved like that, curving in. And of course, because we've glued down, we can go into the wood here. So actually we won't need to back cut at all, we can work entirely from the front. So make sure that edge there is neat and generally echoes this at the top. Right, so these are now finished surfaces, and you can see I'm wearing my gloves to keep this clean. So make sure those are finished into the junction, and you gradually work, you know, the whole of the cloud like that. From the undercutting round the back, which wasn't very deep, as we come round the front, we can angle it a little bit more, angle the tool more, so that it's actually getting a deeper undercut. So I come round here at about that sort of angle, which is more like 30 degrees, and that gives us a harder edge here. Just go straight from the edge back and you know, clean it up underneath. And then make sure that this edge here, this junction, is nice and clean. You can get yourself a little narrow tool like this, a little flat gouge, and you can just go around and pick out that junction there, make sure that's clean, and down that end too, because that is now a finished, the right tool here, finished point. And we're not coming back. So make sure these surfaces are nice. So as you come round, as I say, you come round, and it's flattish here and a bit more undercut, but be careful of this bit because that's quite weak. But pull that out. And then check. Nibble that out there. The other thing I want to show you, I will need to clean that up a little bit more, but the other thing I want to show you is what happens when one of these petals meets one of these over here, and what you end up with is this little triangular part here. You don't really have to do much with that. All you need to do is continue your cuts in here and pop out a little triangle. You can probably find a skew chisel such as this one will get you in there, but be careful you don't wobble this way. So push that in there. What we're doing is we're creating a shadow in between. As deep as you dare, or you conveniently can. And then when you have got that clean, a little bit tricky, there we go. What I suggest you do is you get yourself a little triangular punch like this, which is just a bolt or a nail to, ground into 3 corners, and you can pop that in there and make that shadow even more. So line it up. Yeah. So finishing the surfaces, finishing the junctions, undercutting more on the lower edge. So that'll be all these sort of edges in this direction, less in this direction. Cleaning up these edges here, and where they meet, creating a nice dark shadow. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start working over the whole thing, just like that, bit at a time, making sure I finish as I go along. Let me show you where I've got to now. So I've just been doing basically what I just said over the whole thing, and it just falls into place. You can see these scoops coming in, setting in, lots of undercut. Try and making full use of these sort of shapes and these depths and so on. Big depth change here, for example, the difference between there and there, big depth change. So it just sort of falls into place, and that's the wonderful thing about this carving. It might be slightly different from mine, that's all right, and if the clouds go a bit wonky, then you can reshape them. This is the drawing was only a temporary stage, and I think it's looking really good. Undercut a little bit at the back. I think you can see a little bit there, just not much, but a bit more at the front, which is what we said. So now what I'm left with is coming down into these wispy bits at the bottom. So we have to finish off these volutes here first. One there, and this one up here. So this, I'll I'll clean that up in a minute, but this petal here and this petal here, I'm making this up. I don't know quite what I did with the drawing, but this line, this petal here, is joining this petal here, like that, and it's joining this petal here. So all three are heading down there like that. That's a thing, and it looks natural. It's a natural sort of curve. Now, instead of just going straight off, what I could do is I could come round and come over there. So this comes round like this. So the whole thing is winding a little bit. And then I'm going to just pick this one up here, like this. I think it's a bit high, so let me take that down a little bit. We don't want this too high. So I'm going to take the whole thing down. There we go. So it really comes to nothing at the end there. Bring that back in there. Okay, so I'm going to get my V-tool, and instead of just going parallel, I'm sort of just going to go at an angle like this, so that things are crossing over a little bit. I'm going to have to come back from this side to get that cleaned up, because the V-tool is cutting not very, one side cuts with the grain, one side cuts against it. So we'll have to come across to the other side here. But let me just, so what I don't want is a whole series of parallel lines. I just want lines that sort of cross over, perhaps just peter out over there, almost twisting. Just coming and then petering off somewhere up here, possibly even making that a little bit deeper. And then of course this undercutting. I've completed the other side in the same sort of way, just running those off like that. So now the carving is finished. So you should have nice shadows. Not so much undercutting here, but more on this face. Nice sense of edges and swirls like this, and this is the effect of clouds. So before we take it off the back, do a last check of junctions, make sure everything's clean. This is your last chance really. And also you'll find that these edges, because they're undercut, are actually very sharp. I can feel it on my hands that they've been a bit sharp. So what you want to do is you get something like 240 grit sandpaper and go over these edges, which means rounding them over a little bit, just a little bit, sort of just rolling that edge so that it's very tactile, but also you can see the line of the edge a bit more clearly. So we're not going to sand in here, leave all that bit. We can certainly wipe the top here to make sure that's clean. But these edges, go around and make sure they're, if necessary, you can tune them like this a little bit, on the edges, but make sure they're all nice and sharp. And then with that we can take the carving off. Let me show you the other two bits. I've also completed this one. This is done exactly the same way. Kept the height here, run the helter-skelter round, and you can see it comes up and back in that one, and this one goes round again. So I've kept these heights not so much undercut at the back, as we said, more undercut here, and then running off in the same sort of effect as I've done elsewhere. And then the other one on the other side, this one, is the same sort of pattern in a way, 2 spirals, but this time one's going this way, one's going this way, and they sort of meet and head down there like that. So make sure these are nicely rounded up, lots of shadows. And again, just go around those and make sure those edges are nice and tactile. Well, with that, the carvings are finished. And one other thing, just make sure you have stabbed in around the edge here, because when we take it off, we'll have a fresh edge here. So do check about those edges. So with that, we're ready to take the carving off this background here.